Thank you so much, Janelle, for taking the time today to come and chat with me about the microbiome. So we've been learning quite a bit about the microbiome lately, but that's something that it has been your thing for quite a while. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us why you're into gut health?
Well, hi everyone. My name is Janelle Kotlenberg. I'm a nutritional practitioner, a digestive health practitioner as well, and then an essential oil user and specialist and educator. My health started 20 years ago, 30 years ago, where like my health journey started where my gut was really, really bad. All through my teen years, we just kind of like all I did was Tums and like 7-Up to help all the pain that happened. And I didn't really know why it happened, but Tums were like my best friend. And I always had some sort of stomach pain in the abdomen, somehow, somewhere. We didn't really know what was wrong. My parents attributed it to nerves. At one point, they're like, maybe it's in the water. Not ever did we address food. So as I was getting into my 20s and living on my own and being on my own, I had a lot of health issues, especially in my skin. So my skin was inflamed, pussing, red. And as a young 19-year-old, that is not fun.
Mm-hmm.
And when I had lots of medical doctors and like dermatologist appointments and all of that, it was here's a pill, here's a cream, and nothing really addressed why it was happening. And that's when my brain started thinking like, why is it happening? So I went to like quite a few natural practitioners. I went to iridology, I went to allergy testing, I went to homeopathic doctor, naturopathic doctor, lots of different avenues, and no one really actually worked on that root cause of why it's happening. It was a lot of a little bit addressing a little bit. And so that's what led me to going to school. Because as I was reading and learning, the internet wasn't as prominent with his knowledge back then. I actually read books about the gut and how it plays a role in health. And that led me to going to school. And going to school, I was like, I could help myself, my health, and then my family someday, as I was also getting married around that time. So going to school, and in those few years that I did go to school at the Institute of Holistic Nutrition, I worked on myself. So I learned about the gut, and then I was my own patient. And that was very powerful in a sense that I remember like trying these healthy foods. I went and bought a cookbook, like Candida free, made like lentil soup and a whole bunch of things, and all of it was disgusting. And I bawled. And so it's like I really empathize with those going through health issues because it was growth and I didn't know what to do and I didn't know what to eat. And I did a small cleanse that was given to me. It was like, okay, let's do a cleanse. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't have pain in my abdomen area. And I didn't know what it was like to not have pain. I thought that was a normal thing. And my brain felt clear. I didn't have foggy brain and my skin started to improve. So like that weeping pussiness was like not itchy. So that was an improvement to me. It wasn't itchy, which is kind of silly and crazy, but that was the sign where I was like, oh, something's different. And that was huge. That was huge for me. And in there, I remember those weeks, this was long before oils and doTERRA. There was weeks where I'd do really good. And then all of a sudden, a huge flare up. I ate something bad, took something wrong, did something wrong. And then it was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It was a lot of that. So I've learned a lot in those years. I've since worked on my gut health a lot. I just do stool analysis now because it gets to the root cause, but there's so many signs and symptoms, and just asking and seeing different signs and symptoms, you can get a lot of feel for what is actually going on in the gut. So a good intake form can tell you a lot, and also knowing what your stool looks like can tell you a lot of what's actually happening inside. So that's where I started.
Wow, what a crazy journey. And isn't it interesting, the mindset of like trying to put a band-aid on things and not trying to figure out the root cause? It's so silly to me, like looking back, but that's how we grew up. That's just how things were. I'm so thankful that we were born in this era. We're digging a little more, and we are actually able to be well and not have to take all kinds of things. So we're hearing a lot about microbiome. I think that a lot of people like have heard that probiotics were good, and kombucha, fermented foods, even yogurts with good bacteria. So we have like a little bit of knowledge, like, okay, so there's something to this microbiome. It sounds important, but can you tell us a little bit more why is it important, and why the heck should we care?
Yeah, so great question. The gut is formulated of good and bad bacteria, and we need a balance of both. Like even too much good bacteria can create issues, and too much bad obviously can create issues. And then sometimes you get no markers of good bacteria. So there's like no bacteria of certain strains, because there's a whole host of strains in the microbiome of good and bad. And they kind of balance each other out, and then they work in unity. And in that, they create so many aspects to our health. They help with mental health, they help with skin health, they help with overall, like just feeling good, getting up in the morning. It helps with sleep. It helps with, how you digest food, how you rest. It helps with stress levels, because when our microbiome is, when our bodies are under stress, our microbiome is affected as well. So there's a whole array of things that they're learning, that the gut brain and the heart brain connection is so intricate. So it's not just about, looking well, it's about being well on the inside.
Yeah, for sure. And it affects immunity as well, right? It's just everything. It's like the central station of our health. So like what would you say is the most important to try to have a well-balanced microbiome? So maybe things to avoid and things to do.
Okay, so I'm going to first touch on the immunity aspect. There's two dynamics of immunity in the gut. And with the microbiome and the liver and the whole digestive system, we could have it in overdrive. So then we're sick a lot because our body's in overdrive. But then we can also have it not working at all. So there's two types of regulation with immunity in the gut. And being right in the middle would be better, where it can fight off things, but then it doesn't get too weak when it's fighting off things. So that's a key point to know. Your question, I'm trying to refresh my brain what you asked again.
So yeah, what can we do to have a well-balanced microbiome? Because it's not something that we are like just at the mercy of our surrounding, right? Like we can do something to have a more balanced microbiome.
Okay, so this is a very big question. There's definitely things that can hinder microbiome and the health of it, and there's things that can help. But there's also a lot of nuances with people where they have a bacterial overgrowth, they have a fungus, they have a this, they have a that. So in general, healthy probiotics, good probiotics, are good to take. You as a person shouldn't need them all the time, every day. But there's a time and a space where we need to rebuild our gut, and we'll need that. So if you look at the things that can destroy gut health, very high stress for a long time. So maybe we had, maybe like a stressful incident is like a car accident, we have whiplash. That instance, we had a lot of stress, our microbiome is affected. But let's say that stressor might be a little smaller, but let's say we have a bigger stress aspect where we have a car accident, we are injured in the hospital, a whole bunch of other things are happening, and a whole bunch of other dynamics outside our control are happening, but those stressors are long-term and impactful. That can affect the microbiome as well. You can look at it like hitting a nail on your finger, small stress, gonna have small impact, not a big deal. But let's say like we cut off our hand, big stress, long-term impacts on the gut health. So depending on what your past looks like, I would say that would depend on how much probiotics and microbiome support you need for how long. Typically, when we have when I have a client, it's like, how long have you had this condition, challenge, issue? And then for every year that they've had it, we look at how many months they need to be treated or cared for in a certain area. There are certain key things that you can do in your life that are going to affect microbiome. Eating lots of sugar, that's going to feed a lot of the bad and decrease a lot of the good. So sugar in relative form is okay, especially when your microbiome is okay and your blood sugar is balanced and your blood sugar regulation is all happy, then it's okay. But if you're going to have a lot of sugar, and like, for example, if you think of like Halloween, everyone has a lot of sugar after, and then we get colds and flus. Why is that? Microbiome has decreased because our bodies are on a sugar roller coaster and not able to process it because there's too much. We're always getting a sugar hit. Well, not everyone's going to do that, but there are people who consume a lot of that. Also, if you take a lot of antibiotics, if you have a past of antibiotics, that has at some point affected your microbiome. Antibiotics are supposed to kill biotics, so antibiotics. So any type of growth, it's going to kill, and that's going to kill the good ones as well. Now, I know there's certain strains that work on certain things, but in general, antibiotics create an impact on the microbiome in a negative way. And that is, if someone's on long-term antibiotics, or, at a very young age, as a baby, have been on antibiotics, we know that that microbiome is affected, especially as a young age. That microbiome is just formulating with the breast milk and coming out of in birth. That all plays a role. Even like having vaginal birth versus a C-section shows that the microbiome in the vaginal birth is better for that child than a C-section. Because when you go through that vaginal canal, you are having good bacteria from your mother. Typically, if your mother has bad bacteria, then you also take on that. So plays a role there too. So you could also look at the health of your mother if you're thinking of your childhood. Other things that can impact it, if you are not hygienically careful, and you don't need to be obsessive, but like if you never wash your hands and you're always in public places, you can acquire things for the microbiome that are going to damage it. We're thinking parasites, worms, things like that. But then also if you're overly clean, like obsessive hand washing, obsessive cleaning with harsh chemicals, that's going to also affect your microbiome in a sense that they're killing stuff on your skin, and it's going to impact your body. So there's a healthy balance, right? Being outside in nature is good. I've learned more and more about like having your feet in the ground, and the ground and the microbiome play a role as well. So those are some things that you can take away. I can't hear what you're saying.
Oh, I said the exposure to soil. Okay,
Yeah.
So we were talking about the soil.
Yep.
All right. Avoiding antibiotics that are taken unnecessarily, which is most of the time, in my opinion. Okay, so are there foods that we can eat that are beneficial to our microbiome?
Yes. So anything fermented, but fermented in the right way. So I find like fermentation process has changed over the years.
Okay.
Especially commercial wise. Like, so if you go to like the store and buy sauerkraut, it's going to be not fermented in the same way as like if you did it at home. So I like to find my sauerkraut. I don't make it myself. I like to find it at like farmers markets where, I get mine from a Ukrainian lady, and she just makes it from home, right? And she has that right recipe that's passed on from generations to generations. It doesn't have additive colors. It doesn't have additive things that don't need to be in there, because that fermentation process is enough. And it doesn't need that shelf life that maybe a larger company would have. I personally don't drink kombucha or like fermented drinks. I have found I don't like that sugar content. my body is affected by it. Some people can take it and have fabulous results for helping that microbiome, but that's not been my experience. So, and even making it, I haven't made it either. I've made kefir. So you have kefir grains, you can pass it on. You can probably find a kefir grains community in your area. And then you can make fermented grains that way. I used to do that. I stopped doing that for a while. I don't currently have kefir grains in my fridge, but that is one way to also help. Sourdough bread is something that's intrigued me as well. I'm pretty sure that is better digestible and supportive to the gut. I have tried some. I've never made some. That's something on my to-do list at some point in my life. But you could do all the things and get obsessed about it, but just taking it one step at a time and what works for you. There's also other fermented type foods that you can find like at farmers markets or places like that where, or even those little shops. Like sometimes you have little local shops that have artisan products. That's a way to find some good fermented stuff if you don't make it yourself.
What do you think of probiotic yogurts?
So if a probiotic yogurt contains any type of sugar, then it is killing the probiotics. So
Pretty much all, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty much all of them. So if you have fruit added, it's going to take that away. There are some Greek yogurts that will contain just plain, right? And it just, if you read the ingredients, there's no additives. There's just, milk or cream, and then all your strains that they use to make that yogurt. I also have found sour cream. There are certain sour creams that also have, milk or cream and then fermentation, and that's it for the ingredients. So those would be the best. I think out in Ontario the Western brand sour cream is probably the best. That at least when I was there, seemed the best one out there. Right. Out here, we don't have that brand that I have found. But looking at your ingredients, knowing your labels, that yogurts typically are not going to contain your probiotics like Activia or whatever. It might help you have a better transit time, but it's not going to colonate the gut in the way that you may think, or that advertising may appear to have, advertise it.
Yeah. So what can we do to have all the probiotics that we are supposed to have in our gut? And I know you mentioned it's not something that you need to kind of worry about all the time. So how do you know?
So there's some good probiotics out there. I would also say there's some bad ones. So when we look at the digestive system, our stomach, our chewing, throat, then it goes to the stomach. So esophagus, stomach, that's where the food is broken down. But that's how also we're typically taking a pill. And when the food is broken down by the stomach acid, the probiotic can actually be broken down by the stomach acid as well. So then you get a limited amount going into the small intestine where the probiotic is actually needed. So you have to look at the quality and the type of probiotic that you're taking, because that plays a role. I know lots of times people are like, I take probiotics for years and I haven't noticed a difference. Well, I would say then maybe switch it up, try something different. If you haven't noticed a difference, and sometimes you're not going to notice a difference, like if you're overall healthy, but if you're having digestive challenges and you're taking a probiotic, you probably should be seeing something different. There are times where people take a probiotic and they feel sicker than feeling better. And that also is a sign of something going on in the gut. And then I would say step back and don't take those probiotics, because there's another thing going on and a bigger thing going on. And that's where finding a practitioner like myself or somebody in your area can help you more with. Some practitioners are not familiar with why a probiotic won't work well, but some are. So it's really finding the right person. Like if someone's just saying, take a probiotic, even though you feel crappy, just keep taking it, then that would be a red flag for me, because there's probably other things going on.
But there's also different strains too, right? Like and diversity matters. And you see like the billions of strains and all the different kinds of strain. It's kind of hard to know.
Yeah, there's billion CFUs, all of this stuff. Typically, when you're working on a gut health protocol, you want a high CFU, but the quality of strain matters. And then there's types of strains. So like if I'm looking at a stool analysis, I'll be knowing what strains are good or not good for a person. Because there's a lot of companies put bifidobacteria in everything for their strains. Sometimes too much bifido causes a lot of health problems. And then we're like, we don't want a bifido strain because that's not going to be good for this person. But it does take, a stool test to uncover that. If someone's unsure and doesn't have the time for a stool test at this point, I would say look for a wide range one. I love doTERRA's because it is double encapsulated. I know they're coming out with more microbiome products, which excites me, but at the same time makes me nervous. And that's being said, because I know how these two work, the PB Assist Junior and the PB Assist, and I know how well they work. And I'm like, if they change it,
they better not mess with it.
I don't know. Am I going to get the same results? I hope I get better results. I'm praying it's better, right? We always want better. And I don't actually doubt that. It's just, I'm like, do I still have access to what I know and love? Yeah. But there are single strains as well. And certain single strains are focused on immunity. So if I know that the gut immunity is really compromised, I'll also add that on top of the doTERRA one. Or if I see that liver issues are a huge challenge, the liver plays a role in a lot of functions. I really love Saccharomyces boulardii strain. It is a very good strain in helping with the immunity of the gut. It helps with that immune system regulation when it's going off the walls. It helps with killing certain pathogens that are sitting in the gut as well. So that one I typically add to most people's protocols if we're working on something, just because it's such a great strain for a whole host of things and changing markers of like making bad bacteria lower, all of those things. And so I'm hoping doTERRA has that strain added to theirs because they don't currently. And so probiotics, there are a few good brands that I use outside doTERRA as well, depending on strains. But that's really a stool test to really know. Typically store-bought ones I'm not going to find as active or live. I really love that double encapsulation that doTERRA does. I have seen other companies do that in the double encapsulation, which is genius in the delivery to the small.
That's necessary, isn't it? So that the probiotics are not destroyed by the stomach acid, right? Because does that mean that everything we actually consume, like in a form of food and the probiotics, that doesn't really get to our gut, like drinks, yogurts and all that?
No, I think it does. Like you're always going to get some sort of benefit. And it's gonna help and feed the microbes because it breaks down in the stomach and then goes into the small intestine. It's just when you have a pill, right? It's a smaller amount versus eating a bowl of sauerkraut or whatever. Certain companies do the double encapsulation, but some of them add color. And then I would stay away from those because when you're adding color to a capsule, you're getting the negative impacts on the brain with the color. So that's where if they thought about their, I want to remove color because that's not going to be good for many people, then that would be better. I really love the chlorophyll in ours. That's because chlorophyll has so many benefits outside of it too. So yeah.
Okay, very cool. What do you think are going to be the upgrades of the probiotics in doTERRA?
To be honest, I have no clue. I'm like, I've looked at all what they're doing and I'm like, I hope it's a Saccharomyces boulardii. Akkermansia is a very hard probiotic to make because you need no oxygen when making it. So if it's that, I'd be jumping off the walls. That'd be huge. And that connects to metabolic health, which is really cool because then it would tie in with metabolic health and gut health. If they did that, that'd be huge. really big, actually. I don't know what else, like maybe
I
at
know
3.
one of the things that was kind of hinted was that there's we're familiar with the microbiome in the gut, but there's microbiomes all over the body. There's a microbiome in our ears, in our eyes, in our mouth. So I'm like, okay, why are they saying that? Like, could there be a form of delivery of probiotics that can be beneficial to all the microbiomes and not just the gut? That'd be cool.
Green.
I don't know what that would be.
That's like just a guess. Don't start rumors. I don't know. Like, to be honest, I don't, even when I look at the picture of the things, I'm just like, is that an
No.
oil bottle? Like, even the year, like last year when they had, or the one year they had things, I was like, oh, that looks like it was a diffuser. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not guessing either.
I'm not good at those shape things. So yeah, I have no clue. I did know guaiaca would be coming out though, because Emily Wright had 2 hints and I knew them right away.
Okay. Well, why don't we go on a couple second tangent? Why were you excited about guaiac wood?
I actually wasn't. I had to do research.
Okay.
She's like, it's a this type of tree in this area with high this content. I think it was sesquiterpene or something. So I just Googled tree with high sesquiterpenes in, I think, Egypt or wherever it was. And then it came up as guaiaca wood. I was like, that's it. And
Okay.
then I started doing research. Okay, what does this do? And then I have 4 kids, so I stopped that research and I just waited to attention. There's only so much time in a day.
It's like, oh, it's interesting. It's interesting. Okay. Yeah, there's a to-do list unending when you're mom of 4. Our
Or more.
research years are, in the future.
Yeah. So I was like, I'll just hear about it later.
Yeah.
Telling it, all of those things play a role.
So is there anything that you would like to add in closing? And I don't know if anybody is live and you have a question, even if you watch the recording, you can go ahead and type your question even later on. But
So in closing, I would probably say when you consume something, like putting something in your mouth, ask, is this going to build my health or not build my health? And then it helps you consciously think of what are you consciously eating to improve health or not improve health. That's a huge thing. And then be aware of how you're feeling after you eat food. For somebody, a banana might be not a good idea, even though it's a generally a healthy food. And so being aware of those, becoming aware of your body and what makes you feel good and not feel good in food, like for food,
yeah.
then kind of gives you an idea of where to start. Supporting the digestion is huge. That helps the whole system of the digestive system. If you're not breaking down that food properly, you're putting full food particles into the gut, the small and large intestine, which is not aiding the lining of the gut, and that's not helping the immune system of the gut. That's not helping the microbiome of the gut. So that's a whole aspect, like what are you consuming? How is that going to help or hinder you? And become aware of those things, even write them down if you need to, because that's kind of the start, because you are the driver of your health, and those things matter.
Okay, that's a very good closing statement. Is this fueling my body or hindering, right? Is it going to be beneficial or not so much? Because, well, it all has a positive or a negative impact. So we want to choose positive as much as possible.
Yeah, you can also say that about thoughts, but
Yeah.
that's a whole other game.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
That is great. I learned lots.
Good.
All right. So guys, if you're watching this later, just type your question in the comments and we'll get back to you shortly. And thanks for watching.